and welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports Network. That's Tom Fornelli, that's Bud Elliott, coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada at 2025 Big Ten Media Days. And oh boy, do we have a show for you. Of course, you know, we're going to have our quarterback, Danny Kanell, coming and join us, but we are also scheduled to have Illinois head coach Bret Bielema, Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti. Oh, do we want to hear from Dylan Raiola? I think we want to hear from Dylan Raiola. Nebraska star quarterback will be coming in as well, and Illinois quarterback Luke Altmyer. Danny tied up, I guess, at the tables, right?
Yeah, I assume he's still at the blackjack table.
He was hot last night, so I don't want to be cooler with the show.
Listen, we need to make sure that he just stays level enough that he doesn't leave us. But a lot of things for us to be able to get to over the course of the next 2 hours, and look, over the course of the next 3 days, including the Commissioner Tony Petitti, his address, some of our takeaways from it. We're going to give you our quarterback power rankings for the entire Big Ten. We're going to play, obviously, since it's Vegas, we're going to do all in or fold with some Big Ten storylines and much more. But just generally, as we've been able to move around, have some great conversations with coaches, players, staffers, but what has stood out to you so far here in our opening hours of the event?
First of all, thank you for air conditioning, because it is very hot outside. So being in here in the AC has been lovely, but it's been a good time. It's very interesting because, we've been doing this, Indianapolis is the normal place where we host it, and Las Vegas and Indianapolis, both nice cities, both very different cities in some key ways. But I think that it's been a good time. I think that everybody, we've heard from players, coaches, and administration. They've all brought their families with them. It's kind of been more of a vacation for a lot of these guys than you typically see.
I think there's a lot of intrigue about, like you said, at the Open, the quarterbacks in this league. There's so many who we knew were like blue chip prospects coming out. We haven't maybe seen them be full-time starters yet, especially for the top teams. What Underwood, saying Dante Moore, like this league is going to be decided on which of those guys, maybe all of them hit, maybe none of them hit. Who wins this league has a lot to do with that this year. I think a lot of people are talking about that.
So we're going to start, we're going to unveil our quarterback power rankings in just a little bit, but I just as a matter of philosophy here, but especially coming from so much knowledge of what these guys were like as recruits, how when we're breaking down and picking who's going to win these games, don't forget, we got win totals coming up on the Cover 3 podcast here in just a little bit. How do you judge what we have seen from some players? Even like a Preston Stone, who we did see be successful at SMU 2 years ago, leading them all the way to the American Athletic Conference title game. How do you judge what we've seen versus what we know to be talent with a Bryce Underwood, a Julian Sayin? How do you weigh those two things?
I think it's a fascinating question. A lot of us were putting together our power ratings for the Big Ten quarterbacks last night. It's like, where do you put a Julian Sayin, who you haven't seen start, but you did see him, win the Elite 11 quarterback competition as a recruit? You did see Ohio State not elect to pursue a transfer. So maybe you can kind of judge Ohio State's inaction in a way, right? Like, okay, we like this kid enough that we're not going to go, pay $3 or $4 million for somebody else to come in. Now, some of that has to do, of course, with maybe the lack of talent in the transfer portal quarterback market, this cycle. But I think it's really hard to balance that out, right? Like Mendoza coming to Indiana, he's atop some of these draft boards now, guy getting a lot of hype. There's so many dudes in this league who I think we either know can play a little bit or we at least think can. We're set up for a really exciting year.
Yeah, and we'll get more into it as the show goes along, but I think part of what you're saying there is, like, Drew Aller's a third-year returning starter. Luke Altmyer's a third-year returning starter. After that in the league, like, there's an Athian Kalak-Manis. Billy Edwards started at Maryland last year. He's transferred to Wisconsin, so he has experience in the league. But from top to bottom, there are so many new faces or inexperienced faces at quarterback, and no matter how much football changes year over year, a quarterback is always going to be the most important position. So it leads to a lot of kind of, I wouldn't say instability, but a lot of wiggle room and question marks for everybody in the league.
I think that I think the top of our quarterback power rankings, you've got those names at the top that, we're going to be excited to hear from over the course of the next couple days. The Luke Altmyers, the Drew Allers, the things of that nature. As we think about the way that this conference is set up, at what point do you think that you would draw your line? How many teams are in the top tier of the Big Ten as we think about the pursuit of a Big Ten championship, as we think about, the college football playoff and the fact that this conference has won each of the last 2 national championships? How many teams do you think have the talent and even more specifically, the talent in the right positions to be able to go and get it done?
I'm going to take the easy way out and say 3. I feel like Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State are the three that you're probably looking at to be the favorites to win the league, even with the quarterback questions at Oregon and Ohio State. But I don't know, like we were talking about this before the show, I don't know that I've ever entered a season following the Big Ten in which I've had more kind of question marks about who the best team is going to be. Normally, you kind of know it's going to be either Ohio State or Michigan or maybe Penn State. This year, a whole lot of questions. I think it's pretty open, but I do think those three are probably your top choices.
I think I land on three as well, like Tom, but there is a little bit of uncertainty with Oregon. Oregon is recruited at a super high level, but they have not played a lot of their young guys. So it's like, okay, we're counting on him. He was a former 4-star, counting on him. He was a former 5-star. But like some of these guys played like 50 snaps or 60 snaps. It's not like we've seen them play a couple hundred in meaningful minutes. And they also hit the portal again pretty heavy. So I don't know like what that means about what they think about some of these stud high schoolers, or at least, stud talents that they signed out of high school. I think it's three, but man, maybe it's two.
Yeah.
Ooh. Right? Like, do we trust Oregon enough? Has Oregon shown us enough over a long term? Like, I really trust Ohio State. And on paper, Penn State is the most put together team. You get the best backfield in the country. You get Drew. You get, assumedly, a pretty nice defense coming back. And the offensive line, they certainly feel like it's going to be the best they've had in over a decade. But, like, do we trust Penn State to be that team for the Big Ten? They're always a really good 2 or 3. Like, this year they might have to be, like, the team.
Penn State having to try to understand what it's like to not be sitting there on the outside is one of my favorite things going into this season, just because in the biggest games last year, like the Ohio State game, they were right there, right? And then even in the back and forth that we had in the Big Ten championship game, you were right there. And then even in the semifinals, right? If you don't turn the ball over, then all of a sudden it might be a completely different scenario. So lots of fun stuff to be able to get into. Coming up on the other side, we will be joined by Illinois head coach Bret Bielema, and very excited for it. We'll talk about the Fighting Illini coming up in 2025 and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. Thrilled to be joined by Illinois head coach Bret Bielema. And Coach, I believe this is your 17th major conference media day as a head coach. And sometimes coaches come with a message that they want to send. Sometimes you're on the offensive, sometimes you're on the defensive. So where are you coming off a 10-win season with a lot of great players back? What's the message that you're trying to send as you not only spend time with us, but with the media at large?
No, great question. I think probably earlier in my career, I would probably come in with agendas, right? And now I think the part that I've learned as a head coach is just kind of handle the day as it comes, right? Really told our players. So one of the few things that I do that I don't know if everybody does, but I have a meeting with our players to go through from my voice what I think they're going to see, right? Brett Moore and Pat Pearson sit down and talk to them a couple days before. Hey, here's some questions you might get. But I walk this walk. I came here as a player, then I came here as a head coach at, for 17 years at 3 different schools. This is a day you earn, right? Take advantage of it, because you could build. I remember the first guy I met in a lobby of my first, when I was a player, was Kirk Herbstreit, right? Oh, and you think about, he and I started off in a business together and grew to where we are today. And it's relationships that you build right now last a lifetime.
So this is your 17th, but I'm assuming this is your first in Vegas. How are you enjoying the change of scenery?
Great question, Tom. I would say that when I first heard Vegas, I was I distinctly remember seeing all the other Big Ten coaches' reactions, and we'll just say there weren't some happy campers, right? But right away I said to myself, well, I know I'm going to have, my wife is going to want to come, right? So that was definitely going to happen. And then I would tell you, in my 17 years, when I've sat down and we've had, in the Big Ten was at Chicago and at Indy, and the SEC it was in Hoover, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. When I said we're going to Vegas, they lit up like a Christmas tree, right? And just to see their reactions, a couple of their parents came and we had dinner with them last night. I think we're giving them a life experience that you can't buy, and that's pretty awesome.
your team this year, you guys were not crazy active in the transfer portal. Does that speak to kind of what you have coming back and the culture you built?
Not so much portal, but we've got 40 new players out of a 110-man roster in the building that weren't with us for the bowl game. So we brought in about 21 high school kids and 19 portal guys. So not a complete overhaul, but a lot of new faces. Super excited about some of the guys. I call it acquiring, right? Acquisition. In our conference, took 3 players from Wisconsin on the defense side of the ball, and I think James Thompson is a very, very special player. Leon Lowry, outside backer, and Curt is a D tackle for us. Those 3 guys, I think, are all going to help us in a hurry. Got a couple secondary players that I think will help us on the offense side of the ball. We acquired 2 wide receivers that I think will help us, but a lot of our returning players are the guys we're leaning on. And I think it's just kind of what it is, right? Like I believe there's been a misconception that's created in college football a little bit. If you pay a guy a lot of money, he's going to play really well. And I've seen that not happen regularly as well. So we do what Illinois needs to do, and I think that's what's working for us.
Now, you mentioned the guys coming in, but also with the players coming back. That includes your entire offensive line. Yeah. And I know, this sport has changed a lot in recent years, but I feel like in the Big Ten, no matter what changes, your offensive line is always going to be one of the more important parts of your team. How excited are you to have all 5 of those guys?
After the 22 season, we had a good 22, and we were going into 23, and everybody got excited and where it was at, but I was going into that year, I was really concerned about depth at the offensive line, and that's exactly where we got devastated by a couple injuries, moving people around, and I am excited to have all 5 of our guys that pretty much started our games last year, but we also have 3 or 4 guys that I think are waiting in the wings that played good football for us that I think are going to really help us. I think depth is your friend in the Big Ten just because it's going to happen. So I think that's a really big part of it. But the offensive line is just, there's no other position where 5 guys got to play together. And nobody really understands that until you either coached it, played it, or watched it. And Josh Kreutz, our center, obviously, Dad was an accomplished player. Josh Kreutz is literally like having a coach on the field. Him in combination with Luke right behind him, anything he says up front, everybody listens.
We had JC in here a little bit ago. I remember on our show, Tom was geeking out over some numbers, like when JC was getting recruited, and he's like, "Bud, do not talk about JC on the show."
I don't want to blow the kid up. I don't want anybody to discover him. We're in on him.
Oklahoma tried to get this kid, and then did you guys know what you had in him before he got in your building?
Going into at this time a year ago, we had gotten him, but honestly, during the season, I think I had watched 58 offensive tackles in college football. We knew that we needed to acquire a tackle, and so when I watched him, literally the first night, I said, put him in the top of the list. He was at New Mexico. We had some connections there, but I could just see the way he moved, the way he bent, and the way he kind of just went about his business, and I could tell he was underdeveloped. So I literally told him, I said, man, we got you for 1 year. Let me help you. If I had you for 2, I think we could turn you into something special. Well, then they passed this rule. Right, so I find out that this rule was going to be basically implemented on the early January. So I called my AD and I said, hey, it's Christmas Eve, but if I can get on a plane, I think I could make a difference here. So me and 4 of my coaches hopped on a plane. Had to run it by the wife first, to leave the house on Christmas Eve. Was not in the deck of cards. So we did, but it made it. I knew if I could be around JC's family. But yeah, I think he's an exceptional player. A lot of people project him as maybe a tackle or a swing guard, but I think he and then our right tackle, kind of like corners, right? If you have one good corner, that's great. But if you got one on the other side that's not too good, they just go after that guy, right? So him and Melvin Priestley, since I've been in Illinois, will be the best tackle combo that I've had together at the same time. And inside, there's a kid, Josh Geske, who has been a 3-year starter, ho-hum, right? But he is going to be an incredibly blessed player for us, and I didn't think he'll play in the NFL. Josh Kreutz, obviously name and ability speaks for itself. And then at right guard, I got a little good combo of Brandon Henderson and Brandon Hansen. Those 2 guys are battling out over that spot, and it's really good.
Would you like to play a little trivia game?
Sure.
Okay, so 1992 is your senior season,
yes,
correct?
At the University of Iowa, yep.
Yes, as a defensive lineman at the University of Iowa. Do you remember the Heisman Trophy finalists in the 1992 season?
No. Was Gino Torretta one?
Gino Torretta won. That is correct.
Did Gino win it?
Yeah, Gino won. Yeah, so you got one.
Oh, you know what? There was was Rusty Medeiros one of those guys?
Two running backs.
2 running backs. Thompson at Indiana?
Marshall Faulk from San Diego State, and Garrison Hurst from Georgia.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Hey, look, you've got 1 point.
Yeah.
You know, you're already on the board right there. Congrats. You're in first place.
So, coming off of the 10-win season, like you said, you came off of the 8-win season a few years ago. Then things didn't go great in 2023. But now coming off of 2024, the unofficial media poll came out. You know, you guys are picked to finish 4th. Is there a little part of you that wishes you were picked to finish 7th or 8th?
I do say this, and Tom, you follow us. No. I say all the time, at Illinois, we need a chip on our right shoulder and our left shoulder. We just got to walk through life like that way. I think it's awesome to have expectations. They've been earned. It's fun for the outside world to get. It's helped us in so many ways. Like we actually have had the largest number of applicants to the University of Illinois in Illinois history. We've had more donations than any time, and we're in July, right? We've got more donations to our athletic department than anything in the history of Illinois athletics. So there's a lot of positives that come with that, but bottom line, we're going to be judged off of what happens at the end of the year and what our record is. So I think I'll do enough to humble everybody, right? But I'm super excited. We have a really challenging schedule. We have 7 games before we have a bye week. Our 7th game is against the defending national champs. We have a game 2 at Duke, who I think is sitting in the weeds, and they moved their game till Thursday night the week before just so they have 2 more days of prep on us. So I think Duke's going to be a tremendous challenge. Western Michigan, obviously the MAC and what they do, but that little stretch of Indiana, USC, Purdue, and Ohio State in games 4, 5, 6, 7 before we get a bye week is a really that's a difficult run for anybody. So I know that one's there. We'll regroup, and then we have a little Washington, Rutgers back-to-back, and then get another bye week before we have that stretch. So it's going to be an interesting year. I'm super excited to go through it. Really, I know a lot of us, we concentrate on our players, but I have a coaching staff that I have all 3 of my coordinators back for 3 years in a row, and Josh Whitman, our AD, is, in my opinion, the best AD in all of college athletics, and he's really done a lot of great things to support us to get us where we are.
Is that even more important as the rosters continue to have so much turnover, that when you've got the continuity of the messages and the voices in the room, that can be something that you really need?
I have 20 coaches in the building, and 9 of them played for me. Right, so like I know they already know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But Barry Lunny, he was with me 5 years at Arkansas as a tight ends coach, and now he's been my coordinator for going into his 4th season. So yeah, there's a lot of positives, and I think the players recognize it too. So Luke Altmyer, he says a lot of great things, but when I sat down to visit with him at the end of the year last year to talk about coming back, the first 3 things he asked me are my coaches coming back, what's my wide receivers that we're going to bring in, and what we're going to do to develop them in our offensive line. Right, so he's talking like an NFL quarterback. He didn't ask me about money. He didn't ask about his contract. He asked me about what things we're going to do to make him great, and that's I think what it's all about.
After the coach on the other sideline of the bowl game had to do the hold me back thing, I got to ask you this: if we
you couldn't let this go.
I mean, I was out there. I was holding my 3-year-old.
Yeah, I guess.
Dude, this is great. If we had Big Ten coaches UFC, and you can't pick yourself, who's the champion?
Big Ten UFC, who's the champion
of the coaches?
I would say PJ Fleck, just because he may not be the biggest, but there's
relentless energy.
Yeah, he is. Sometimes USC is like survival of the fittest, right? And he's definitely probably the fittest. But yeah, that would probably be my take.
So PJ Fleck is he's got the Fight Club, a bloodied face, and he just won't quit the entire time.
It'd be neatly placed, bloody. Right. Yes.
What a great moment last year. Michigan comes to town.
Yeah.
You've got the jerseys. We had a great conversation with Gary Danielson earlier, and he pointed to that as one of the real highlights from his experience last year. What did that game mean to you and the program, reflecting back on?
Well, to be honest, like I know I get a lot of hype around my social media presence, right? So
sure.
I really wanted to be considered because we're a 9-3 football team. We lost to Oregon, all right? We let one get away from us and lost to Minnesota, so we lost to Oregon and Penn State. Oregon house is pretty good. Penn State we were on the 2-yard line, 1st and goal, right? And I'm like, hey, we're not too far off this conversation. So if Ole Miss is rallying around, we should be in there, and South Carolina is rallying around, and they should, right? So that's why I kind of had some fun. So I knew going into that game, we actually thought we were going to play Alabama. Mm-hmm. Like we were contacted and told, hey, we're going to play Alabama, and but I think the powers that be wanted a helmet game. They wanted that Michigan versus Alabama, which is fine. Go let them, play helmets against one another, and then we got South Carolina, and I started watching them, and I'm like, oh, this quarterback, and then I met the guy, like he's as big as my inside linebackers, right? And I'm like, he can throw it and he can run it. And then they have these defensive players. So I'm like, we got a challenge here, right? And we just played extremely clean, played good football. I thought we played Illinois-type football, stayed in it to the fourth quarter, pulled out when it mattered, and I think that kind of defined who we were that season. But I always believe this, bowl games are great, but bowl games that are won carry a long time, right? It's the last game you played, and it carries all the way till the first game of this year. So that effect on our program was, I don't think we would be near the narrative right now if we had finished 9-4 versus 10-3.
Yep, and it was win number 10, and those double-digit wins, always a little bit of a mark.
Yep.
He is Illinois coach Bret Bielema. Thank you so much for spending time with us here on the Cover 3 podcast.
Appreciate it, gentlemen. ILL.
I
knew I could get one.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. That's Tom Fornelli, that's Bud Elliott, that's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson here from Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, Nevada. Our thanks, of course, to Bret Bielema. Excited we will also be hearing from the Illinois quarterback, Luke Altmyer, before the end of this. Also scheduled to have Curt Cignetti and Nebraska quarterback Dylan Raiola. Before we get into more of our interviews, there's always a little bit of a rhythm and a routine to a Media Days, and that includes an address from the conference commissioner. So, the college football playoff. Danny, how long have we been talking about the college football playoff?
Too long.
In terms of
too long
format, and are we talking about a 5+11, 5+13, 4-4-2-2-1-1 hike? I don't know. It's all a little bit of alphabet soup to me, but we did get a little bit of clarity in terms of the Big Ten's stance through its commissioner. Let's hear from Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti on the future college football playoff format.
In the spring of 2024, the member conferences came together to negotiate a media deal with ESPN. Prior to concluding that deal, an agreement was reached that set forth revenue sharing from the college football playoff to the conferences and Notre Dame. At the time, there was a lot of discussion about future formats and the number of teams in the playoff. A specific decision on format was not reached. Instead, it was agreed that the Big Ten and SEC would control changes to the CFP format and the selection committee process after considering feedback from the membership. Like the revenue share parameters, the Big Ten and SEC's format control is set forth clearly in the agreement that all members signed. With respect to format, the Big Ten has been consistent in its strong preference for a playoff system that allocates spots based on conference standings and the results of play-in games. We want to better connect the regular season and the postseason. A critical goal of any postseason format, regardless of sport, is to keep as many teams alive as deep into the season as possible. We want more conference games to matter in November. Also, the playoff format should not function as a disincentive to schedule tough non-conference games. As we said throughout this process, we are open to considering any format ideas that come from our colleagues or the CFP staff. But to be clear, formats that increase the discretion and role of the CFP selection committee will have a difficult time gaining support from the Big Ten.
All right, let's start with a little bit of table setting, because I know that context is very important here, because initially during this offseason, both the Big Ten and the SEC had looked at one of these models where automatic bids would be given to each conference, and the conference could decide them based on your conference standings and, as Tony Petitti mentioned, play-in games. Then, at the SEC spring meetings, the university presidents and the SEC leadership kicked it to the coaches, and the coaches said, that's crazy. Coaches said no. So the SEC moves with a little bit of a pivot. The Big 12 and the ACC are in favor of models that would include more of a 5+7, which is what we have right now with the 12-team playoff, with being open-minded to a 5+9 or 5+11. To hear Tony Petitti remain steadfast in that position, Danny, what do you sense in terms of the future of the college football playoff?
I think he wants to make sure that the SEC can't game the system where if it's 5 plus 11, you could see a stacked college football playoff with 7, 8 SEC teams in it. I think that's Tony Petitti's biggest fear as the conference that's taken them down the last 2 seasons. He's viewing himself as why should we take a backseat to anybody? The one thing I will say this is I'm sick and tired of talking about all this. I can't wait for football to start, but I do appreciate his mindset. The one thing that I like about that is he's trying to downplay the impact that the committee has, a selection process, which is something that's driven me nuts throughout the course of the BCS era, through the 4-team and now the 12-team. If we can get things done on the field as much as possible, that's what I appreciate about Tony Petitti, trying to push for some of those where we don't have as much of a selection process and it's more determined on the field.
Gentlemen, am I losing my mind?
Yes.
Because I've spent how many years yelling at you about the college football playoff and about all the expansion and how this is what's going to happen, and now I'm hearing you finally come along my side.
I am anti-expansion from now on, but 12 is the perfect number, or at least it's perfect for the foreseeable future. Why do we only get 2 years of this experiment? Last year was a huge smashing success. The regular season mattered. It was impactful. We had losses that kept teams out. Conference championship games matter. You saw Clemson beat out SMU to get into the playoff. Like, it was both things mattered. Why do we have to jump from 12 to 16? Why can't we ride this out a little bit longer and see how much this system works?
I mean, look, all of these guys, whether it's Petitti or Sankey or Phillips or Yormark, their number one job is to make as much money as possible for the conference that they represent. It's a business enterprise. So from the Big Ten standpoint, if they do get these play-in games, they're going to make a whole lot more money, and they have to protect the Big Ten's interest, right, if you think about it, because they know that like teams 7, 8, 9, 10 are going to look better in some of the computer rankings for the SEC, which can kind of game some of these strength of schedule numbers, right? I'm not saying that's like totally invalid, but I do think sometimes maybe the strength of schedule differential is a little bit inflated and not really truly representative of the difficulty that you see for the teams that are actually going to be in the playoff, right? Like, I don't really care if your schedule's harder for like the 8th team in the league. That doesn't really matter, nor really should it matter for the committee. But I think from Petitti's standpoint, hey, he doesn't want to see some of these strength of schedule metrics come in because they might confuse the committee or bias them when it doesn't really have anything to do, at least not as much as I think Sankey and those guys want it to be. But like, they all get up there, they all talk about like it's for the good of the sport. And I'm not saying it's not, but I think the number one thing to remember is they're trying to make more money and drive the business agenda here.
Okay. The paralysis by analysis already exists with this selection process. They show them 17 different statistics, and it's just green numbers and red numbers and something out of 136. And how in the world is a committee member who, by the way, this is not your full-time job. Like, you know, we just flew in to make these decisions. How are you going to be able to decide? No, it is entirely about vibes, you know, there. You talked about strength of schedule and gaming the system. There is a belief that the Southeastern Conference gets to game the system because in their 16-team league, their 8-game conference schedule allows them to put together a situation where our 9-3, they might argue, is better than your 10-2.
And they did argue that last year.
And they did argue that last year. So Tony Petitti did also weigh in on 8 games versus 9 games and whether conference schedules should be the same across the country.
Is it a must in your mind that the power conferences play the same number of conference games? And if the SEC won't go to 9, would the Big Ten ever consider going back to 8?
Yeah, so first, it's not a must. Each league will decide what they think the best conference schedule is for them. I think in a system where you have allocated spots, I think in talking to our athletics directors and coaches, I don't think we really care how many conference games any league is playing because you're qualified off your conference standings. That's sort of up to you to run your own league and decide how you want to do it. But when you get to a system that's increasing the at-larges and increasing the work of a selection committee, that's when you need to understand like how we're competing in the regular season. Like, look, at the end of the day, it's really simple math. With 18 schools and 9 we're losing 9 more games to start. And so at the end of the day, I think it's really relevant. So will we consider more at-larges? Like right now, I think the first thing is to really understand what everybody's doing in their conference schedule. But there's a second really critical part, which I mentioned in my remarks, which is what are we doing to get the selection process right? So I think those two things go hand in hand. First is how many conference games are we playing? And then secondly, what's the selection process going to be? People have talked about improving the committee's work. I believe the committee does a great job with what they have, and I've yet to hear any member tell me that more data will make the job easier. They have a lot of things in front of them. We went through a mock selection, we saw it, And so I just think those two things have to go hand in hand. First is the conference games, but again, if you go back to an allocated system, then I don't think we really care about how many conference games anybody plays.
See, this makes me think that Danny's unique newfound desire to not expand might happen. I mean, that's going to be the impasse. It's going to be, we only want to expand if it can be a large set of at-large bids. Well, we will only do a large set of at-large bids if you go to 9 games. No, we won't go to 9 games. Then no, we won't expand. I mean, if we're sitting here in Las Vegas in a little bit, we'll be doing a little all-in or fold. This makes me want to place a bet on that 2026, we still have a 12-team playoff.
I think the big worry, and before we threw it to Petitti there, you mentioned, hey, like the SEC tried to argue 9-3 over 10-2. Chip, they tried to argue 9-3 over 11-1. Yep. And I think that's Petitti's real worry here, right? It's not, okay, could a 9-3 get in over 10-2? Yes, they can, and it has kind of happened before in terms of like the 1-loss differential. I think the 2-loss thing is where Petitti is right to stand there and say, hey, your schedule might be a little bit tougher in some years. It's not 2 losses tougher, dude. All right, like you're referring to Sankey, obviously. He's probably not calling him dude. But
I don't know.
They might. They have a lot of dinners together.
Like, it's not more data for the selection committee. I think he's rightly worried about like the SEC trying to insert their influence and say, hey, you have to give a lot more consideration to strength of schedule so we can cook the books and put a 9-3 team in over an 11-1 team.
And I think getting back to the point, though, about like if this is going to happen or when this is going to happen, like the SEC and the Big Ten are the 2 leagues that are going to decide the future.
Oh, and he reminded the world there. It's like it doesn't matter what's happening at your conference, at your conference, at your conference. The decision happens here. That felt like a big message.
And the 2 powers that are in charge are in completely opposite sides of what they want it to look like. So I have no idea when it's going to finally happen. But the way things have been going the last few months, I think it's going to be a while before we get an answer. With
the conference schedules, too, because that's been such a hot topic, there's so many, there's opinions are all over the board about it. Remember, I was like, hey, why don't they all play 8? And then you could each play the same amount of non-conference games and try to schedule one against the Big 10 or Big 12, ACC, and SEC. Let's get some of that cross-pollination so we can actually have a fair assessment of teams, because right now the way we do it, it is comparing apples to oranges. They're so entirely different. But the one thing I do is I don't care how many conference games you play against your opponents. It's really how many Power 4 games do you play. That's one thing I wish that both conference commissioners would harp on. Say, you know what, if you want to play 8, that's fine, but let's make sure we're all playing 10 Power 4 games, which I think is something Tom brought up in his playoff proposal, which I think would be a great suggestion. It's a starting point to at least get everybody on the same, at least, model to start to compare them against.
Well, we haven't had enough time to get into any trouble on the tables, but can we get into trouble here as we go either all in or fold on some Big Ten storylines for 2025? We'll get into all that and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. That's Tom Fornelli, that's Bud Elliott, that's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson, coming to you from Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, because we are sitting here in Las Vegas, we thought we'd have a little fun. We'd place some bets. And this bet is very simple. We're going to give you a Big Ten storyline, and you have to say whether you are all in or whether you fold. Okay, Tom, I'll let you get first here. So are you all in, or will you fold that it's now or never for Penn State? Always right there, the bridesmaid but never the bride, runner-up time and time again. Have not won the Big Ten since 2016. Is this year, is it now or never for the Penn State Nittany Lions?
All in or fold. I wish I had some sunglasses on so you guys couldn't read me. I'm going to go all in. I think if you look at the narrative surrounding this team and everything that they've done, obviously Drew Aller's coming back at quarterback. They have Nick Singleton and Katron Allen back at running back. They've got a ton of returning experience, and they're following that same kind of blueprint that Michigan and Ohio State did each of the last 2 years, where they were able to convince some of their guys who could have gone to the NFL to come back for another year, and it was expressly for the purpose of winning the Big Ten, getting to the college football playoff, and competing for a national championship. Then you poach Jim Knowles, your defensive coordinator, from your one of your arch rivals in Ohio State. if you look at the situation and you look at James Franklin's time at Penn State, when has this team ever been in a better position to finally break through and kind of defeat Michigan and Ohio State, who are the two teams he's had the most difficulty doing that against in the league? If they can't do it this year, how can we realistically look at one another and ask ourselves in the future, I think Penn State can win the Big Ten?
It's hard to say all in or fold, like they could never do it.
I'm saying never.
Yeah.
If you say fold, I'm saying that never.
Never. All right, then I'm all in on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is hard to get this collection of veteran talent in this era. You know, they're able to front load a lot of their NIL stuff to make sure all these guys stay home. You look at the classes that Ohio State and Oregon are signing as well. Like, those teams are uniquely young this year relative to how they have been. So I do think that this is Penn State's best chance in a couple of years, and probably for the next few years as well. So I'm all in.
I'm all in for all the reasons that you guys mentioned, but also about the other teams.
Yeah,
think about the question marks that are at Ohio State, replacing all that they lost, breaking a new quarterback. Oregon, same questions. Michigan, massive question marks. All the teams that have been at the top of the Big Ten have question mark. Penn State has the perfect storm of what looks like everything coming back. So I'm all in on it too. And what happens if they don't, as far as it pertains to James Franklin? Like, that narrative, it's already, that cauldron has already been a slow boil. He's been great, but that's top five hasn't, the lack of success against top five opponents still hasn't, that one hasn't been combated by James Franklin. If that doesn't happen this year, how much pressure did that grow on him? How much does it hurt them in recruiting and bringing in players saying now they can't win the big one? I think it's all in right now.
And another factor to consider here, too, another reason I'm all in, like, James Franklin has been at Penn State for a long time. He is the second longest tenured coach in the Big Ten.
Which, by the way, anti-Kirk Ferentz division makes you the longest.
Yes,
yeah, Kirk
exactly.
Ferentz is a totally
different beast. But USC, Oregon, and Washington and UCLA have recently joined the league. So Penn State's position as what would be considered, the automatic third best team, depending on how you want to look at it, that's not exactly the same situation anymore. Oregon could supplant them. USC can supplant them. I feel like if you're James Franklin and Penn State, this season is huge. I mean, I'm not going to say national title or bust, but I do think that they have to at least get to the Big Ten championship game and make a deep playoff run again and beat Ohio State. Prove that you can do it.
Yeah, I'm pushing my stack all the way in. I think that you can see my cards. I don't know what kind of cameras Tom's got placed here, but the Big Ten got more difficult with the additions of Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. And your point is spot on. You are not going to have a lot of time where there's so much transition, and that includes with USC, which has kind of been wandering in the wilderness, but they are investing in facilities. They are investing in trying to bring that program up to speed where they're keeping up with the national powers. I just think that this is the window of opportunity for them to be able to do it, where you've got to seize this in order to really solidify all of the investment that's happened along the way. I, too, am all in on this being a do-or-die year for the Penn State Nittany Lions. All right, next storyline. There are 9 teams in the Big Ten who can compete for a 4th spot in the college football playoff. Bud Elliott, all in or fold?
Is counting bad TV if I'm counting in my head? I like my odds here. I'm all in.
Okay.
I'm not even sure the Big Ten's going to get 4 teams in. I know that was a big storyline for us, and we called it correctly last year in the preseason. Like, I think the bottom of the league was, rebuilding enough that all those teams at the top could collect wins, not get tripped up along the way, and that's what happened. We were right about that. This year, I think the league is much deeper, so I do think it's an open question, as we saw from Petitti talking about picking up those extra losses in conference games. Like, will we see these teams get a couple more losses hung on their record and maybe only get 3 Big Ten teams in? But I do think if they're going to get 4, 9. So we have to count Michigan in this 9, right?
100%.
Okay. All right. So Michigan, USC, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. I need another hand here for counting TV. I'm going to stay on the same hand. I won't change microphones. Who are we missing here?
Washington,
I guess, in theory. Nebraska, certainly. So that's 7. We need 2 more.
UCLA, if Nico hits.
Okay. I'm gonna kind of check on that one. I don't know if I'm,
All right.
if we're playing check or bet, that's more of a check. Shoot, we got to be missing one live.
See, I'm a fold.
I'm a fold.
I'm a fold.
Yeah.
I don't think there's 9 teams that can make the college football playoff. I think that there's too many teams, and this happens a lot in college football, where when the separation is so small and there's good teams, but maybe flawed good teams, that especially within a 9-game conference schedule, you're just going to get tripped up too much, because the college football playoff selection committee, which will be deciding this year's college football playoff, they're kind of a loss sorter. They kind of go through and they just sort who's got the least amount of losses. Okay, throw them up there near the top. That's why I'm a fold. I just think that the cannibalization of those teams in the middle tier of the Big Ten would keep necessarily that many teams being college football playoff ready.
I think I looked at my cards. I thought it was 9 or 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, so the problem, I think you could make a case right now. I think I could make a case for 9, but do I really believe that all of those are going to come together and you could see that perfect scenario forming? No. Like, even when you mentioned Nebraska, I'm like, I still need to see Dylan Raiola take that big jump forward. Washington, Damon Williams has been awesome, but the first year under Jed Fish was not spectacular. Like, you're expecting a massive jump. Lincoln Riley, like at USC, maybe it comes together, but do I feel confident that they're going to be in that playoff picture? So, I mean, I could make the case, but I'm not buying that all of them are going to come to fruition.
Cowards. You're all cowards. I'm going all in.
All right.
I sit there, obviously there's the top 3. We can look at Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. But I think the key here is once you get past that, what is viewed as tier 1, there are so many question marks in this league about what with new quarterbacks and all this kind of stuff. And even with the top teams, where I feel like the Big Ten has somewhat of, it's not to the same extent, but it has somewhat taken on a similar situation to the Big 12, where the difference between a lot of these programs really isn't great, and it could come down to a lot of coin flip games. Like we saw last year, Illinois won 10 games, but that included 5 fourth-quarter comebacks. Like, they were a few plays away from being 6-6. So I look at that. I look at Nebraska last year. I think they can be that kind of team. I think Iowa can be that kind of team who becomes an Indiana and takes a huge step forward. So I think that even when you get past those top 3, there are a lot of schools in this league who can get that 4th spot.
Speaking of Dylan Raiola, we are scheduled to hear from him coming up in the next hour. Also, visits from Curt Cignetti, and we'll hear from Illinois quarterback Luke Altmyer. So coming up on the other side, much more of the Cover 3 podcast, live coverage from Big Ten Media Days, and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live from Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, Nevada. We've got a lot of opportunities to be able to look at the landscape. We think we know some answers to questions, but if you want to talk about unknowns, it is going to be what things are going to look like for year 2 of the Sharon Moore era at Michigan. We look forward. We are scheduled to speak with him a little bit later in the week. The continuation of Tom Fornelli's rivalry with Sharon Moore in terms of naming his quarterback. Tom, do you expect that Bryce Underwood will be able to be the answer that really has been who will replace J.J. McCarthy ever since he left as a national champion?
I mean, I think it depends on the context. I think if you talk about the talent and the potential that he has, yes. I think if it's just going to be, even if he doesn't live up to that as a freshman, will he be an upgrade over what Michigan had at quarterback last year? Almost definitely, because as I've on the record saying, Michigan had MAC-level quarterback play last year, and it really impacted him. And the fact they were able to win 8 games with that level of QB play kind of speaks to how good the rest of that roster is. But a lot of that roster is left. So Underwood is going to have to be a difference maker for them to get that offense to the next level. And when you look at their schedule early, they've got a game against Oklahoma pretty much right off the bat. So he won't have much runway to get going.
On our summer school series, Sam Webb does a great job for us, 24/7 Sports. He goes, but it's win, not if. And I tend to agree. Like, he's not Cam Newton, but he is the closest thing, I think, as a prospect, like abilities, that type of thing, that we've seen since a guy like Cam Newton. He really is different. Like, athletically, he's freaky. And then we were watching 7-on stuff last summer in Orlando. I'm like, oh, in the championship game, he had to score every single drive. And he went 23 of 24 with the drop.
Whoa.
So, like, that's not bad, right? So you can move like that. You're doing a backflip after you throw a touchdown, and you just don't miss. There'll be growing challenges. I think facing Oklahoma's defense early is really tough. But there's a reason Michigan paid what they paid for Bryce Underwood. And, basically went to a level LSU couldn't handle. Like, that's big-time money because he's a big-time player.
Calling their quarterback play MAC level play is insulting to every MAC quarterback out there.
I feel bad every time I do it.
I saw Parker Navarro play.
Right.
Come on, that was even.
All this hype about Arch Manning. I mean, this is a $12 million quarterback, and Bryce Underwood. He's coming in with just the same amount of expectations. And I think whether they can ramp up by week 3 when they play Oklahoma is a massive question mark. But I don't think there's a reason they brought in Mikey Keene. And I would not be surprised if they played 2 quarterbacks early to kind of get a feel for where Bryce Underwood is, kind of sprinkle him in a little bit. And I think you're going to see a return to the smash mouth football that we saw early in J.J. McCarthy's career and early with Cade McNamara. Remember, Sherrone Moore is an old offensive lineman who wants to be physical. When they had J.J. McCarthy, they ran it every time in the second half against Penn State. I think you might see a little bit of that early in the season until Bryce Underwood gets more comfortable.
They also had a little bit of not instability, but almost uncertainty last year at running back on who's going to be the alpha. Another question that needs to be answered for Michigan along the way. Well, we still have a lot more coming your way here on CBS Sports Network. We are scheduled to have a visit with Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti. We will get Nebraska quarterback Dylan Raiola and Illinois quarterback Luke Altmyer all coming your way. And so coming up on the other side, he said, Google me. We did, so we'll have some questions for him. It'll be Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. That's Danny Kanell. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson, scheduled to be joined by Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti here shortly. So before we get Coach Sig joining us here on the set, just to think back to the ride that was Indiana football. I had a good conversation with wide receiver Elijah Surratt earlier, and he mentioned the moment when he really thought that this could be something special was the UCLA game, which, he was very cordial and respectful about it, because in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, when you absolutely pasted them into the ground, like that was a startling moment to see them go into Westwood and come out with the big win. So I will pose the same question to the two of you. When did you really start to take Indiana seriously as a team that could be going for double-digit wins, and that could be, I didn't even think about the college football playoff until we got deeper into the year. When did you start to take them seriously?
Maryland.
Okay.
I thought Maryland had some nice matchup edges in that game, and they were similar talent type teams. I thought Billy Edwards, before he got hurt, was playing pretty well. Indiana hung with them slightly for about 20 minutes, and they just took it to a different gear that Maryland couldn't shift into. And I was like, all right, these guys are real. It's not going to be a matchup issue of a similar talented team that gets them. You're just going to have to play somebody with way bigger, stronger, faster, better bodies it has a chance to get these guys. But they just didn't beat themselves at all, and they killed teams.
They were a wagon, in Tom Fornelli's word.
Right.
That's when we started hearing it earlier in the season. You mentioned the UCLA. I think they were a 3-point favorite in that one on the road.
Yes.
And they ended up winning, just boat
42
racing.
to 17.
Yeah, it was. So you started looking at it all right, but then the repetition, they kept doing that and kept looking so much better, which was one of the things when we talked about resumes. It wasn't like they were eking by some of these opponents. It was the dominant fashion, which used to be a metric out there, was game control and what does the scores look like. And unfortunately, they didn't get that benefit at the end because everybody wanted to dwell on the Ohio State loss, right? How did they look against Ohio State, and how they look against Michigan? The game they won was one of the games they didn't go out there and just boat race that opponent. But I thought it was the dominating fashion and the physicality. That was the thing too. There wasn't anything fluky about it. They were a physical football team.
There is something to be said about the belief that you have on campus, the belief that you get sort of around the community, because even the people within this Indiana football program have said that Bloomington had to sort of wake up to big time college football. And so that's when I saw it. I saw it with the crowds, because you could even go back to their season opener, the FCS season opener, and you didn't have the place packed, but then they kept coming on and they jumped on with Coach Sig. And then you had the sort of inspired, cigarette T-shirts that are out there and that branding. And then all of a sudden, the belief is something that we only see this on Saturdays. We talk to them through the week, but I start to think about what it's like for these guys on campus in their class. You had the expectation. Everybody in Tallahassee knew that Florida State was competing for it all, but there had to be a little bit of belief. There had to be something that needed to turn. And Danny, I think that that's why it's easier for me to believe that this is not just a 1 year, comet type event, because I think that belief really resonates throughout the whole Indiana community.
And I thought one of the biggest reasons for the successful turnaround was not only the confidence that Coach Sig, instilled in the campus and in those players, but some of the players he brought with him with James Madison. Those players were used to winning championships. 13, 14 players came with him to kind of bring that message into the locker room and get everybody on the same page. Do you remember when he was at the basketball game and he called out Purdue and then he was like, yeah, we're going to beat Ohio State and Michigan too. And everybody was like, oh boy, he's going to get embarrassed when they play those teams. To be able to back that up and to go toe-to-toe with those ones and beat one of them was one of the more remarkable stories we've seen in college football.
And they bring a lot back.
I was going to say, let's spin this ahead.
A lot of the James Madison guys and the guys from last year that were good.
And they may have a massive upgrade at quarterback. Like, we were huge Curtis Rourke fans, back to the days at Ohio. We liked his brother. But if he was really playing on a torn ACL like they were saying last year, Mendoza has, I think, a lot higher upside. And they may need to be better as a team this year to get the same record that they had last year, because the schedule is a little bit harder this year than what they had last year. They got some teams at the right time last year, and to their credit, they put pedal down. Like, they hammered these teams that were in disarray. The schedule's harder this year, but I think this actually, in some ways, it could actually be a better team, especially like if you have a top half of the first round quarterback in Mendoza. That's a real difference maker. But the schedule, look at this: Illinois, at Iowa, and then a bye week at Oregon. And then you host Michigan State, UCLA. Like, the back half of that, Michigan State, UCLA, they weren't great teams last year, but they do have some really high-level quarterback ability guys who, if you catch them on the wrong day, they can come up and bite you. And then you got Penn State, like, in Happy Valley to close the year there. This is not that easy.
There is a real thought, especially you go back to Curtis Rourke and dealing with the injury last season, that one of the places where Indiana needs to improve in order to compete against the Ohio States and Notre Dames of the world is along the offensive line. Yeah. And I know that Coach Cignetti has even mentioned that in this offseason. It's like, hey, we cannot let our quarterback get hit the way that Curtis Rourke got hit. So if we want to talk about ways, as the schedule gets tougher and as you are going to face more of those bodies, they need to make sure that those portal additions along the offensive line are going to be able to gel together.
I will say Mendoza, playing at Cal last year,
getting killed.
Cal was a horrible offensive line team. For y'all who didn't watch Cal, like, guys, every practice report I was reading out of the Cal site, shout out Jackson Moore, I was like, so Mendoza's just getting killed every day in practice? Like, this is not good. Like 11 sacks and scrimmage type stuff. So he's used to avoiding pressure and does a really good job at avoiding pressure. And even though Indiana, it's hard to upgrade your offensive line a lot in the portal. Those guys are typically like your studs. They're signed out of high school. They're paid out of high school. They're paid to sit and develop. Like, you really can't get it through the portal that much. At least Mendoza is used to dodging pressure, and he's really good at it.
There is we had Bret Bielema on here, and because the portal continues to turn over, because we've got a situation where every single year you're going to be welcoming, 30, 40 new faces between your freshman class and your portal class. Bret Bielema talked a lot about the continuity, because while Tino Sunseri is off to UCLA, as an offensive coordinator, they've still got Mike Shanahan, who was with them at James Madison and now came to Indiana. They've still got Coach Haynes, who was with them at James Madison and came to Indiana. That's where it is really easy for me to buy back in, because while the roster continues to turn over, that coach continuity seems to be something that Coach Cignetti's been able to keep going all the way through.
No doubt, the staff, and a lot of it comes down to culture, but it also is routines, it's also schemes, all of it together is why I'm a believer too. I don't think Indiana is going to be a flash in the pan last year. I think they are a team that's going to be right back there. One of our bold prediction podcasts we had earlier, I think that game against Illinois early in the season could be one that potentially has playoff implications. The winner of that game, which is in Indiana, could be one that we see eventually have an impact on the playoff picture.
What kind of record do you think would mark success for the Indiana Hoosiers this season?
Success, like, from our non-Indiana fan standpoint?
Yeah, from our objective third-party Cover 3 podcast.
I think, given the non-conference schedule, I think 9-3 would be like an unquestioned success. 8-4, I think you could still probably argue success, depending on how some of the secondary teams they play. A Michigan State, a UCLA, Wisconsin, depending on how those teams are. But guys, in our lifetime, anytime Indiana has comfortably made a bowl, like think about like the perspective and how much Cignetti's changed what we think about this program already. Like that's a huge success, just making a bowl at Indy, and I think they got a chance to do something special.
What do you think?
8 or 9, I agree.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they go 10 and they're in that conversation again.
All right.
The schedule is not that difficult.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got so much more coming your way, more live interviews, more analysis for the Big Ten in 2025, and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. That's Danny Kanell. That's Bud Elliott. That is Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti. Coach, thank you so much for joining us here live from Big Ten Media Days. This is such a different environment than when you came to Big Ten Media Days 1 year ago. After school record for conference wins, school record for wins, you've got the top 10 finish for the first time since 1967. How have you seen the way that Indiana football is being discussed change across the last 12 months?
Well, I think people know who we are.
Right.
They're aware of who we're playing and scheduled to play. And, I think there's a lot of respect out there for what we got done. I mean, it's best record in school history,
right.
126 years. So, here we go again. But you got to start over. Every team in America got to start over, regardless of how you did the year before. It's like building a house. You got to start with the foundation. So you got to have the right people in place and have a blueprint plan and, standards, expectations. So I think we got a lot of good pieces out there, and now we got to mold a team. And, people say, like, you're going to have a target on your back this year. And I said, does that mean we can't hunt too? I mean, we can't hunt anymore? Right? So it's all good.
I love that mentality. One of the things you made a lot of waves with some comments that you said, including when you first took the job, you were introduced at the basketball game and you called out everybody, Purdue and then Ohio State and Michigan. How much was that of we have to change our mindset of what we believe we can do versus you actually thinking you could do it and do it in year one?
Yeah, hard question to answer, but probably more so the former. I mean, I'd get people's attention. It was a program that had been neglected a little bit. The facilities were a little bit old and antiquated. Wasn't liking the first day feel I was getting, and wasn't real pleased with that. So I had to wake up the fan base, find out if they were dead or just on life support, so to speak. And,
so you got the paddles out for them, resuscitate.
Yeah.
When we were talking before you came on, like when did you become a believer in Indiana? And when did you know that you had something special last year?
Probably on the December signing date when we brought those 22 transfers in, because I knew those guys could play, and we knew a lot of them. A lot of them were from JMU, and I knew we had flipped the roster right there. That we'd have a great January, see where we're on spring ball, what we need in the spring portal. And that, it could happen. I felt very optimistic. Now, there were times before that you're just trying to keep your head above water. I mean, we're down to 40 scholarships. Had 10 offensive starters in the transfer portal before I ever stepped on campus. I didn't know that. They didn't tell me that. I wouldn't have either. Okay? But, it all came together. We had great leadership in the locker room. And the one thing about it is I got great continuity on my coaching staff. My coordinator's been with me like 12 years. And, other guys along. So we're all on the same page. And, we're pretty efficient in what we do.
Fast, physical, relentless, smart, disciplined, poised.
Yep.
I get it?
Not affected by success, not affected by failure, never ever satisfied till the end of the game.
When you're thinking about ways to communicate a message, because coaching is coaching, right? You've got to be able to communicate a message to a locker room. When do you know that something's really caught on with the group?
When you see 11 guys doing their job consistently and doing it like you want them to, and responding and reacting to certain things that occur the way winners do. That's buy-in. And you're changing the way people think. But if you got the right kind of guys, they want to be coached, they want to be great players, and they want to win. Because when you win, everybody gets more all-conference, NFL opportunity, et cetera. So you see it show up on tape. Yep, and how a team handles success, failure, et cetera. And there's a good core leadership nucleus down in the locker room that you can trust.
Speaking of seeing on tape, what did you see from Mendoza, your transfer quarterback this year, that made you want to go after him?
He's a big guy. He's tall, athletic, mobile, fast, quick release, strong arm, can make all the throws, good zip on the ball, throws the ball well on the move. Played a lot of good football at Cal. He's got some areas he's got to improve on, but he knows that. And he finished spring ball his last 5 practices I really liked. And really just have a lot of confidence that he's going to develop and really do some special things for us.
I think sometimes people just assume, oh, he played well at Cal, he'll just plug him in over here at Indiana. But I think one of the more complex things about playing quarterback is learning a system, the nuances of it, getting familiar with the terminology. How do you speed up that process with somebody who you need to have an impact week 1?
Yeah, I don't know how much you can speed it up. It kind of takes on its own natural progression because, like you said, the concepts may be the same or similar. They're called different. The way you practice is different. You got new teammates he's learning about. I got press coverage over here on both guys. Which one do I go to? So there's a learning curve, and they've all kind of followed the same curve. They struggle a little bit the first half of spring, kind of inconsistent. And you're installing a lot, too. The second half of spring, they're better, have a good summer, and then totally different guy in fall camp. And then they really build on their successes early in the year, that first game, second game. That's what I've seen. Because our last 5 quarterbacks have all been one-year transfers. But they've all been player of the year in the conference on offense.
Todd, Jordan,
all
the way through to Curtis.
Yeah, and Centeo.
Yeah.
And then Cole Johnson, who succeeded. But DiNucci was actually a backup. Rourke wasn't player of the year, but he led the country in quarterback rating. Second team all conference, had a great year. So Fernando, he's going to do a lot of good things for us.
There's you made a joke right after you sat down about scheduling. I'm guessing that your future schedules has already become part of the conversation along the way. Is it how much do you, just as a philosophy, how much do you want to be a part of the future scheduling philosophies or picking opponents or making those decisions, working with the athletic department and trying to make those arrangements?
Right, yeah. Okay, well, there was a scheduling philosophy, a new one that took place here before I was hired. And then once I got hired, I signed off on Virginia. Okay, we can get another home game out of this.
Sure.
So I'm cool with that. The SEC, which I brought up on the podium, 12 of their 16 teams play 3 G5 or FCS teams. That's 12 teams, 36 games, 29 G5, 7 FCS. So, we're not the only ones doing it. But I think there needs to be uniformity in scheduling down the road so we can take some of the talk out of the playoff selection and take some of the decision-making away from the committee. Let's have playing games, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 on championship weekend. And I think that'd be a great thing. And I think the Big Ten really should get 4 MAC qualifiers. When you look at Ohio State, they finished 4th in the league this year and won a national championship. So, right there is as much argument as you need. As things change in college football, we'll adjust and change too.
As it came down to the wire for the selection committee, were you actually nervous that they might take a 9-3 team over y'all's 1-loss team? Like, how much were you buying into the rhetoric and some of the stuff from the shows that that might happen?
No, I wasn't. Not after the Purdue game. I did get a little nervous after we lost to Ohio State, and then subsequently the SEC teams went down later in the day because I could feel the tidal wave coming from the South and major networks that cover the SEC.
Sure.
Yes. Like, where'd this come from? I thought we were a feel-good story. All of a sudden, we're the hunted enemy. When did that change? Is this just a bad dream?
Why are we the bad guy? No one's made us the bad guy.
Yeah. So, but after we beat Purdue, I felt like we'd be in. Yeah.
Last question for you here. Would you like to play a bit of a trivia game?
I don't know how good I'll be at it.
Okay, all right.
I have to, I will.
So in 1982 was your senior season?
Yep.
At West Virginia?
Yep.
Do you remember who won the Heisman Trophy in 1982?
Wasn't Marino. It was probably a quarterback. Could have been George Rogers. No, he was the year before. He was 81, I think. 82. What quarterbacks came out? Marino, Elway. Did Elway win the Heisman?
Elway was the runner-up. You see, you got one there.
Okay. There were 6 of them drafted in the first round that year, maybe 7.
Right.
Wait a minute. I can't remember.
Okay.
Got your list?
I do have my list. 1982, the winner, Georgia running back Herschel Walker.
Oh, golly.
First runner-up, Stanford quarterback John Elway. Second runner-up, SMU running back Eric Dickerson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's when you had, no doubt about it, Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker, and Marcus Dupree within 5 years of each other.
Unbelievable. Well, I'll tell you what, we're putting everybody on the spot here. So you've got 1 point because you were able to name a finalist. Bret Bielema got 1 point. So right now you're tied for first place at the moment.
All right.
And I will update you later on who ends up winning this trivia challenge.
I got to beat Bielema.
Oh, he is Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti. Coach, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Cover 3 podcast.
Thank you.
Coming up on the other side, more of our coverage from Big Ten Media Days and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. That's Danny Kanell. That's Bud Elliott. That is Nebraska quarterback Dylan Raiola. And Dylan, we are trying to keep a scoreboard of our coaches. We're giving them trivia questions. And I think that we're going to have to informally create our own power rankings for the best dressed players who come join us here on the Cover 3 podcast set. You are very quickly jumping to the top of the list. Can you give us a little fit check? What do we have going on right here?
Going right there.
Yeah, I got my Christian Louboutin, my red bottoms on. It's got a plain black suit, but I wanted to throw a little hints of red in it.
Right.
So I did some red piping with the red pin, and then to finish it off,
Yeah,
I
that
got
custom with the Vegas theme.
Yeah, with the Vegas theme. So I might have to go leave this at the Bellagio, right on the ledge.
That's good.
That could be an item one day if all of a sudden, someone wants to be able to have that.
Yeah.
No doubt. So last year, your first year starting quarterback, walk me through the year because it was ups and downs, right? You come out the gate, start really strong. There's a little bit of a setback. You kind of had some bumps along the way. What was like that for you personally? It's probably one of the first times you'd face some adversity like that.
Yeah, it was tough at first. I kind of didn't really know what to do. Didn't want to leave the house the next day, even though you had to go in and get your body right for the next week. But I just learned a lot. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your team and your coaches. And so when you kind of face trials, you kind of find out who you really are. And so, last year we wouldn't count it a success, but we did win a bowl game and so all those things. But we're excited for the next year and for the new season.
You got a lot of new pieces coming on the offense, new offense with a new coordinator. What has you most excited about this Cornhusker offense for this year?
I think just the versatility that we have. Our 5-star linemen right now can block their tails off for a long time. We got running backs that run very hard, tight ends that can catch and block, and then our receiving core we upgraded big time. And I'm just excited with Holgerson kind of putting all the pieces together. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for a long time. So now it's just time to go out there and execute it.
How much of an advantage was it to get a little glimpse of him last year at the end of the season, carried over into this season? And you mentioned the success. He's had a lot of success with quarterbacks over the course of his entire career, offensive-minded guy. How has your relationship built with him in the quick time that he's been there?
It's built quick. It was kind of like an emergency type of deal last year the last 3 games. But since then, it's been smooth sailing. Just meeting with him, getting to know his family, and all those things that kind of lead up to, all right, I'm going to trust him calling, this 3rd and 4 that we need in the 4th quarter. I know he's going to put us in the best position to be successful, and we'll go make that play.
He's known for breaking out some kind of wild stuff in some bowl games we've seen. How often does he put something in you're like, whoa, like that? I can't wait to run that.
Yeah, it's always fun. Like every week he's got something new. And so after the game you get in Monday meeting and you're like, well, what's Hole got this week? What's he got new in this week? So he has fun with it. He got some swagger to himself, and he still loves doing what he does.
Yeah, I imagine I had this image of him, and like when Coach Rule called him, he was like sitting in his house drawing plays on the wall, or something like that.
No, that's what it is. Like you walk into his office, and like our new facility, every office has whiteboards. Like it's the wall. It's just what it is, and his is just decked out in plays. And I'm like, oh, we're never gonna run one of these plays. He's like, maybe I'll pick one off for the week or whatever it is, but no, he's just a football junkie, and he's loving it.
Football is life for you. Football, it runs through your family. And I know that for you, there were lists of things that you wanted to get better at, right? Some off-field things, you wanted to, I know you spoke about wanting to work on your conditioning. How has your own personal growth been in terms of getting yourself ready for your next season?
Right. So, after the season, look at the man in the mirror, and I knew I had to make some changes because, when you want different results, you got to change up what wasn't working. So with that came conditioning, cardio, physical shape, and I just went to work. And, lost about 5% of body fat, lost about 25 pounds, and kind of just put it all back in muscle. Not all 25 pounds, but put some back on with muscle and my conditioning shape. I focus on that. I run probably 3 miles every 3-4 days, and so just being able to, all the work our guys put in, and for me to, if I wasn't in shape, that'd be a shame, right? And so putting myself in the best position to be successful and help lead this team to victory.
Now, not that you're going to run out or come out and run for 1,000 this year, but do you think defenses have to honor your legs more now that you are quicker?
I do think so. That's something that I wanted to make a point of running. But it's also, I want to make sure I'm still progressing through plays and making the right choices. But I think every now and then it's okay to just be like, all right, I'm going to go make this play by myself and go get a first down. So, I mean, it's all fun. Football's a chess match every single game, every single play, and so you're just trying to react to what the defense is playing against you.
Your relationship with Patrick Mahomes, well documented. I'm sure you get a little bit tired of being asked about it sometimes, but he is the greatest quarterback in the NFL right now. Does it ever get to you? Does it add pressure to you? Is it something you embrace getting compared to him? I mean, you've got the look, you got everything down, but just that relationship, does it add pressure to you to perform?
No, it doesn't, and it's kind of just the lens I look through it. I'm not comparing myself to Kobe or anything, but like Kobe did to Mike, that's kind of what it is for me to Patrick. And so for him, like you said, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, if not the best. And just for me to be able to have someone to look up to, talk, call, whatever, and then kind of the comparisons is kind of everything outside, right? And I mean, I can't control God made me look like this, play the same sports, but no, it's all love. Football's a great game. It provides great opportunities for everybody, so it's pretty cool.
All right, we all like to talk football. We sit around, we throw names out there. I can't help but hear you said one of. So if you were to put a Mount Rushmore, which 4 quarterbacks currently active in the NFL, who is on Dylan Raiola's Mount Rushmore of active NFL quarterbacks?
Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Matthew Stafford. Joe Burrow and Josh Allen.
Ooh, fast answers too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Elaborate. What stands out about the other 3?
The other 3, well, Uncle Matthew's Uncle Matthew to me.
He's your godfather, right?
Yeah. Growing up with him, and I think Joe Burrow is probably one of the fastest processing quarterbacks in the league. I mean, I go back and watch not just only Patrick, but Matthew and Joe and Josh, and just trying to learn different things. And you can just tell, like, Joe knows exactly where he's going with the ball right when it hits his hands. And then Josh Allen's just a freak of nature when it comes to making plays and doing things on the field that most people can't do. So you try to learn from everybody.
Sure.
And that's the next level of getting better is to learn from the people that are ahead of you.
A lot of our audience has their college fantasy drafts coming up. We actually have our college fantasy draft coming up. Who's the receiver for Nebraska this year who could be a league winner if you pick him?
Yeah, I would have to give that to Dane Key. He's new, transfer from Kentucky, but he's embodied every single thing that it means to be a Nebraska Cornhusker and a receiver. And so I can't wait for him to experience the stadium. I'm trying to prep him for it, but you can't really do that. It's just one of a kind. You have to experience it for yourself. So, now Dane Key for sure.
I love the way you were talking about your season last year. It was bumpy, and we're talking about some of the adversity, but we did win a bowl game. Where does it go from here? What are the goals for Nebraska? What's the ceiling for Nebraska this year?
Yeah, it's point blank, like national championship. And, it's not a cliche like, all right, everyone wants to win a national championship, but like guys are bought into that. They're bought into the process of it. And so moving forward, that guys know that if that's not the bar that we're living up to, then we got to fix it, or we got to address it and do something that rises up to that standard that we set. So I think it's anyone can win it. I mean, football's a tricky game.
What needs to happen? Okay, you said that's the goal.
Yeah.
What needs to happen for Nebraska? Like when you're thinking about being the leader of this team, what needs to happen to get there?
Yeah, well, I think learning from last year, you can't win a game in 3 quarters. Ooh. It's going to come down to the fourth, and especially those last 5 minutes, whether you're behind or you're up, you got to go make a play to end the game, or you got to make a play to score to put yourself in a position to get back in the game, right? And so that's just been a big focus all off season was. We're gonna be in close games because our schedule's tough. The Big Ten's the best conference, and there's guys that are showing up every day that are gonna be playing on Sunday. So you have to come ready to play, and in those 2 minutes, you have to be ready to make a play when the ball's in your hand.
Well, Dylan, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Best of luck this season. He is Nebraska quarterback Dylan Raiola. And coming up on the other side, we're going to keep the quarterback conversation going. Illinois quarterback Luke Altmyer joins, and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, thrilled to be joined by Illinois quarterback Luke Altmyer. What a scene here in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days. Have you gotten a chance to enjoy yourself with, spend some time with your teammates, a little bonding action here in Las Vegas?
For sure. Me and Xavier and JC have had a good time. We got here 2 days ago, so we've had a couple. Yeah, I know. Coach Bielema does a good job of taking care of us. So we've had a good time, done a little shopping, spent some time with some good donors, had some good dinners, and it's been a blast. It's something I've always dreamed about being a part of.
Yeah, I saw you guys are doing a little hangover photo shoot. I saw it on social media.
Everybody a part of the program does a good job. The production team, media team, they figured it out for us, and they put it. It was fun. That was a funny deal. Yeah, so it was cool.
It's got to be a little bit different vibe for you guys as a team after coming off such an impressive season last year. Now all of a sudden you're kind of becoming a trendy pick, maybe to make the playoffs. Right. What's that difference like? Kind of all of a sudden being talked about and praised and being picked by the media and others.
Yeah, it's different. I'll tell you that. It ain't been that way for this program for a long time. I'm kind of just coming into it, my second year. So, but a lot of these fans, 40-year season ticket holders, they haven't had a lot of this excitement in a long time, and it's bigger than myself. And I'm excited to lead that charge. But in 2023, when I was coming into it, not a whole lot of people were really loving on us for good reasons. Man, we weren't very good, to be honest. Coming off that 23 season and 24, had to kind of do what we had to do to be in this position now and have that target on our back and to be talked about. It's what we asked for, and so we don't take it for granted. We understand what got us there, though, is the work and the daily preparation grind and maximizing the opportunities to do it. So we're excited. We use that as momentum, and we believe in our gifts, so we're excited.
One of the things that we hear a lot from coaches and players is that, the levels, you lose big, you lose small, you win big. And sometimes those last steps can be the hardest. As a quarterback, 5 different times you have led a game-winning drive in the last minute or overtime. That is the most of any active quarterback in college football. Is there something about your mentality? What allows you to be able to tap into winning football when the game is on the line?
Yeah, it's a mixture of a lot of things. My mentality, one, I believe I belong in those moments, and I expect to win in those moments. I'm excited for those moments. Those are the most fun times of the game. My physical abilities, I believe I'm gifted. I believe God's given me great gifts to be great. And, preparation. I watch a lot of tape. I do. I watch a lot of tape of my opponent in those situations, in those 2-minute, end of half, in the game kind of scenarios to kind of understand what I'm going to get from a defense and our offensive kind of menu of plays that Coach Lunny, our offensive coordinator, who does a good job of putting us in good positions. But those are my favorite times. You're not overthinking. You're just reacting and playing, and just kind of using your gifts to be your best. And those are fun. Those are fun moments. And like I said, I believe in myself in those moments. I believe I belong. It hadn't always been that way, and so And I've prepared. We practice those moments. So a mixture of mentality, I believe I'm gifted physically, and preparation. And the preparation meets opportunity, and a lot of success comes. And those are the most fun times for sure.
Speaking of those comebacks, one of them, Rutgers. At any point while Pat Bryant was running towards the end zone, were you screaming, "Get down"?
I was down. That's the thing. He wasn't down. I was the only one down. They brought like a cover zero pressure. It was a weird deal. They showed us something that we hadn't seen, and they beat our protection because it was so different. They did a good job actually of kind of scheming us up, and Pat found a soft spot, and I got hit right under the chin, and so I kind of let it go, hoping he'd catch it. I saw a window I could complete it. But I'm on the ground trying to get my bearings. I kind of just hear my right side ear, the reaction to the sideline kind of just pop a little bit. So I figured he caught it. Something good happened. I didn't know exactly what happened. I kind of pop up, see him running the hoop a little bit, and I have the best seat in the house of his angle, and so I don't even think about going down. I'm thinking he's going to go score, and so I'm like, yeah. So it was a cool, just bang bang moment, kind of spur of the moment. It was just super cool. Glad to. Like I said, a lot of preparation went into it. A routine play, but we stayed even kill. It was cool, but I didn't see anything. Honestly. I heard a lot, and I popped up, and I see his angle, and I'm like, go ahead. Yeah, you're good.
Those are absolutely the best moments as a quarterback, when you get drilled and you can't even see anything happen, but you hear the crowd, you know it's good. That is the best feeling out there. Yeah. You made huge strides last year. Comfort in the system. You had great weapons. What for you do you think allowed you to take that big step forward to have that breakout year?
Yeah, I was in 2023. I wasn't very good. I was talented, but I didn't believe I belonged out there. There was some hesitation, some caution to make mistakes, as a lot of quarterbacks go through, especially at a young age. And everything I ever wanted was in my hand. I just didn't believe I belonged. I was scared to make mistakes, afraid to fail. And so going throughout the 2023 season, I failed a lot. And so I was able to experience that and understand that I had to do some work, in the mental, spiritual, emotional side of my life to kind of get to where I wanted to go. Because like I said, I knew it wasn't a talent issue, because when I was free and loose, I was really good. And I believe I was gifted. But and I had a lot of great help from a lot of great people, whether it's pastors or psychologists, to help me understand who I am as a person. And that just kind of was day after day after day throughout that off season, and culminated into a confident dude that you saw in 2024, and it's only going to be even greater in 2025, because I never stopped that kind of daily choice and decision of getting help and really studying great people who I think who helped me and see me and my identity. So excited for it. It's been the greatest part of my journey.
What is the next step? What's the next evolution of your game?
So much. I'm getting better every single day. Like physically, I've gained 15 to 20 pounds. I'm sitting around 220. So physically, I'm in the best shape of my life. I've kept my speed, got even greater speed. Mentally, my focus is in a different place. Man, I'm so focused on leading my team and the daily preparation decision to be my best. That's never wavered. And my spiritual life too. I'm orientating myself upward to who I believe is my Savior in Jesus. So. I just understand what's important now, and I've developed that even just such a greater sense from 2024 to 2025. So I'm using my gifts daily to be my best, to be a greater quarterback mechanically and body control and agility and all that. And every single day I'm doing what I can to be my best. So you're going to see a better quarterback, I think, out there. So because I'm working hard for it.
I wish I gained 10 pounds. I'm not able to spin it the same
shape.
way.
No, you did it to get in shape.
That's right. That's how I'm spinning it now.
One of the reasons, there's the expectations are higher this year. You guys won 10 games, but it's also you're back and nearly the entire offense is back. But Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin, who are the two leading receivers, have moved on. What have you seen from the receivers that will be coming into this year to take their place? How have you guys been working to get ready for the season, and who's standing out to you so far?
Yeah, it's super difficult to replace those guys. First of all, Pat, who was a third rounder, going to tear it up in the league for a long time, and Zachary, who's set every record in the NCAA forever. So two guys who had a lot of experience, a lot of ability. So won't be easy to replace them, but thankful for the transfer portal and even the development of Coach Bielema's process. We got a lot of young guys who've got their feet wet a little bit, made some big catches in big games, who have ability to be the next Pat, to be the next Zachary, to really do it. You just hadn't seen it. And so guys who were really, really excited to take that step in fall camp, whether it's Malik Elzy or Kapka Jones or some of our slots have been here for a while, and they're going to make really big strides. And you've seen that a little bit, but even the transfers, Hudson Clement from West Virginia, who's put it on tape, been really, really good. Justin Bowick from Ball State, who's got every single tool that you ever want in a receiver, 6'5",
big
the
body.
fastest dude on our team, to be honest with you. And has got a chance to really light it up. And young freshman Braden Trimble, who will mix in there too. I think we got a good group, just ready to see who's that alpha, who's that Pat Bryant, who's that Zachary, who's really who's ready to compete at a high level and to believe in their gifts. So excited for those dudes to take advantage of that moment coming up.
He is Luke Altmyer. We are excited to watch you all season long as you look to stack another successful season in Champaign. Awesome to hear about your development through the offseason, and we look forward to following you. Thanks so much.
Man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live from Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, Nevada. Look, we have our biases, okay? We're human. I think we're a Luke Altmyer podcast.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, I'm sorry. Like that's just. I'm going to admit my biases to everybody who is watching, everybody who's listening and downloading the Cover 3 podcast wherever you get your podcast. We very much appreciate him, Dylan Raiola, Curt Cignetti, Bret Bielema, and we've got so much more coming your way over the course of the next couple of days. But yeah, great visits with all of them. Okay, speaking of Curt Cignetti, before we get out of here, let's play a little game, right? So the question posed is, who could be this year's Indiana? And to expound on a little bit more, your dark horse picks. So, Danny, who's your dark horse for the Big Ten in 2025?
I'll start it off. So I'm not going like the Indiana philosophy. We were trying to find like a 4-win team last year, a 3-win team, somebody at the bottom. But I'm going to go with the program that has been really at the upper third of the Big Ten for quite a while, despite having some of the worst quarterback play in the country. Mm-hmm. And they go to the transfer portal, and they bring out a player from the FCS and Mark Gronowski, who I think could be that player that launches this team into the top upper tier of the Big Ten. You think about how bad they've been. This is a player who has won 2 national championships at the FCS level, leadership. He's a 4-year starter, comes in with a wealth of experience. I think the schedule's manageable. I'm going with Iowa.
Tom?
Well, to echo Danny's point, I think the only true team that could possibly be this year's Indiana in the Big Ten would be Purdue, because they have a first-year coach and he's brought an entire new roster.
Right.
But I don't think any of us.
Fornelli,
No, I am
this
not
year's
taking
Indiana.
Purdue.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to clarify.
I am taking Purdue to be this year's Purdue. I am going to take Nebraska to be this year's Indiana, in large part because of the kid we just had on set talking with us a few minutes ago, Dylan Raiola. Dana Holgerson taking over full-time as offensive coordinator. And also, just looking at history, Matt Rule's teams, there is a third-year bump. He's gone from 6 wins to 10 or 11 at each of his 2 previous stops. This is a Nebraska team coming off of a 7-win year last year. I think they can get to 10. I think that when you look on that offense, there are some questions at wide receiver that have to be answered, but I think they have a good quarterback. I think they have a good scheme. And defensively, if they're able to kind of maintain that level, even though Tony White is gone and they've lost a few key players, I think this is a team that could maybe finally start living up to what Nebraska fans have been looking for a very long time.
Guys, I feel kind of conflicted here, because this is a program that would be so depressed if they realized they were being considered a dark horse. But to just go down, the odds list and to look at sort of where they sit in terms of their peers, I'm going to go with USC. I just think that there's something to be said from looking at a USC program that said goodbye to a lot of players. That probably means that they feel confident in the ones they were able to keep. They could have gone to go and find a new quarterback to bring in to compete with Jaden Maeva, the same way that Lincoln Riley went to get Jaden Maeva to compete with Miller Moss after Miller Moss had the great bowl appearance. But this is still USC, and this still is a head coach in Lincoln Riley who before, just a year ago, was just routinely rolling out of bed and throwing out double-digit win seasons. And so I think that USC, the way that USC competed against some of the best teams on its schedule, against the college football playoff teams on its schedule. I mean, Miller Moss's pick 6 made the final score a little lopsided, but they really were throwing punches with Notre Dame. That Penn State game was an absolute thriller. And so they are not a dark horse in terms of, blowing you away with shocker, USC wins in March Madness when Kemba takes UConn all the way to the national title. They were a 7 or 8 seed, but still it was UConn. But I think there could be something kind of like that. So I'll go with USC as my dark horse for this.
You are absolutely addicted to believing in USC. Every year
Yes.
that you pick USC to take a step forward, they have a terrible season. So Trojans fans, I am sorry Chip believes in you. Don't give up hope.
I'm going to get us back on track here and pick an actual dark horse. At USC, I guess by the odds, sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Washington.
Okay.
I don't know how many of you guys watched that bowl game against Louisville. Quarterback Damon Williams went 300-200 on the Cards. Like, this kid can really play. Jed Fish did an excellent job at Arizona. I thought he did a nice job last year with the roster. I mean, it was just gutted by the draft after they went, and played Michigan for the national title game. The schedule is hard, but I think it's like high variance hard, and that you could tell me a couple of the teams that we perceive on this schedule entering the preseason as being really good maybe slip up and aren't quite as good along the way, and they become a little bit more winnable, for this Washington team. So I know they're really, really dark, but I'm going last year. I got to pick somebody. I think Washington. Give me quarterback. Give me Jed Fish. They're my pick.
If they don't have the worst special teams in the country, then I think that they can probably close the gap with some of the things they had along the way. Just a couple minutes left here. Let's give out some honors. Who's the MVP who sat with us?
Easy. That's why we're a Luke Altmyer podcast right now. He blew me away. The poise, composure, confidence, talking about his personal growth. I thought, in my mind, what I was thinking while he was talking to us is that sounded like a franchise quarterback in the NFL. Like, I could picture him crushing the NFL draft process because of the way he handled himself.
Any other takeaways from the day, Altmyer or otherwise?
I thought everybody we had was great, but I'm with Danny. I'm going to vote for Altmyer. We are officially a Luke Altmyer pod.
I thought Cignetti was good. First time we've interviewed him, he talked about, I was a little unsure what the committee was going to do, before we beat Purdue and before some of his other teams ended up losing on that day. I thought it was, kind of, he was honest. He admitted, it was a little bit scary.
Yeah, Curt Cignetti, Bret Bielema, a couple of coaches that had wildly successful seasons and maybe surprised some people. And as we continue to roll through our coverage of Big Ten Media Days over the next couple days, we will have some coaches in very different positions because tomorrow we will be bringing you our conversation with the reigning national champion, Ohio State. That's right, Ryan Day. We will be joining us, as well as Penn State's James Franklin. We'll have Drew Aller. We will have so much more. Jed Fish. You'll be able to tell him that Washington is, in fact, your dark horse. So we are very excited. Again, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on CBS Sports Network. And, of course, all of our coverage from Big Ten Media Days you can find on the Cover 3 YouTube channel. So you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow him at Danny Kanell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Download, subscribe the Cover 3 podcast wherever you get your podcast. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Happy birthday, Jake.
See y'all.
Let's get hot in the tables.